You are listening to the Digital Signage Today podcast.
Welcome back to the Digital Signage Today podcast. Joining us, we have Judy Model, who is the editor of Retail Customer Experience. She will be sharing with us some insights into how retailers are using digital signage, kiosks, and other customer experience technology. The top stories for this week on Digital Signage Today include one about the Digital Signage Today Future Trends Report. End users can take part in a survey to tell how they are using digital signage and how they plan to use it in the future. Experts in the field can also share their insights in a blog on what the future trends of digital signage will be. The other top story this week looked at how McDonald's Sweden is using digital signage in the drive-thru to transform the customer experience.
The Interactive Customer Experience Association's mission is to connect B2C brands to technology that elevates the customer experience. Brands have access to resources, project help, news, and insights based around boosting their customer experience. Suppliers gain network opportunities to reach these brands and help them provide solutions to elevate their customer experience. Join today at icxa.org.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Digital Signage Today podcast. I'm Bradley Cooper, the editor of Digital Signage Today, and I'm joined today with Judy Model, who is the editor of Retail Customer Experience. How are you doing today, Judy?
I'm doing great, Brad, and thanks for having me on the podcast. I always love chatting with you.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you, too. So today we're going to be talking about digital signage, but more broadly, just customer experience technology in retail. So to start with, just with a kind of a broad question, what are some ways you notice retailers using customer experience technology?
Well, it's very varied. I mean, there's definitely a wave of new technologies coming into retail, from in-store kiosks to mobile devices, and that's everything from the smartphone to the tablet. And they're being used by everybody in the store. The associates, the guys in the inventory rooms. In fact, I was just at a furniture homeware store down in the Carolinas, and this very young and very nice associate used her smartphone, which looked to be quite old. Honestly, it wasn't an iPhone or anything. But literally, right there in the furniture space, could look up to tell me automatically, quick, did they have the table I wanted in the warehouse? What was the price? Could they arrange delivery, within a day or two? And then she even went another step further and grabbed my phone and got me a 40% off coupon. It was so quick, so fast. The only thing that was missing is I still had to go to the front of the store to pay. So, when that part comes up where she can take my credit card and just handle everything, then it'll be nirvana. But it's just amazing when you look around a store today, because I think we're all getting a little desensitized to the digital revolution where, it doesn't stop us in our tracks anymore. We're kind of looking for it and expect to see it. A couple of weeks ago, the local CVS by me literally just dropped in two self-checkout kiosks, right in front of the actual physical cashiers, right? And I'm waiting online, and I noticed them, but I didn't really notice them, right?
Right.
And then some woman down the aisle who worked there says, "Oh, honey, you can check out by yourself." Now, as a middle-aged woman, I thought that was pretty wow. You think I'm that technical, okay? But, I thought, okay, it's just literally popping up without any kind of notice. I didn't get any email from CVS like, hey, next time you're in the store, do the checkout, you'll get out quicker and easier. And what I did, I actually went to the cashier, but what I noticed was missing was some kind of signage, digital or otherwise, to kind of lure me over there and to kind of give me 3 steps to how to make this happen. Because I know that my older relatives they'll never go near those. You
Hmm.
know, they have a smartphone, but they barely can dial, right?
Hmm.
So I think some of this great technology is coming in, and it's going to be wonderful. Um, but there also has to be this part of helping the customer who might not be so digital savvy.
Right. And that leads us right into our next question. And how are these retailers using digital signage? What are you noticing?
Well, I'm seeing kind of like two main trends, at least, and you know much more about this than I do, obviously.
Hmm.
But way back, way back, 10, 15, 20 years ago, whenever the first digital sign showed up, it was a standalone. It was kind of like a one purpose thing. What I'm seeing now is part of the big, broad projects that are happening in retail, um, whether it's to help direct customers to where they need to go or how to find things or what the latest sales are. But it's also, underneath or, there's another component happening. Like with the CVS thing, it would have been great if they had some kind of digital signage to kind of direct people over there. So that's to me a broad theme I'm seeing with digital signage. So the second one though is that it's gotten away from being this really kind of brand marketing message machine. It's actually becoming more of a not experimental, but more of the experience where it's like images and subtle, kind of communication where it's not like, hey, Nike's on sale on aisle five, whatever. But it's kind of giving you more of a overall welcoming experience in the store. So I just see a lot going that way with digital signage.
Gotcha. It's very interesting. So, in your experience, what do you see as some of the challenges holding back these retailers from adopting digital signage or just customer experience technology in general?
Well, the thing is, and I don't think anybody in retail will deny this, but retail as an industry has just been very slow on jumping on a lot of technology, digital signage, and anything else. And purely because, in retail, there's such a small margin of profit, where,
Hmm.
any kind of technology is an investment. And I think the other thing is they've always had to justify everything and do an ROI case for whatever they might do in a store. So when you're talking about 20 stores or 100 locations or even two stores, and then you got resources you need and you got to hire on a partner, you're taking a big chunk of money and you're hoping that it's going to pay off and you're hoping you're going to get the best use out of it. And a lot of times when I'm doing stories, I talk to the vendors and I'll be like, because they're pretty much the front line in hearing what the problems are on the retail side. And it turns out there's just a lot of misconception about the technologies and they're so expensive and they're going to require so much in-house resources. And a lot of times, especially on the mobile app side and stuff, it's very very minimal. And I think retailers are starting to understand. Okay, just because it's technology doesn't mean it's expensive and it's going to be an arduous kind of a project.
Interesting. So, you mentioned a while back that CVS was using some self service kiosks and just they kind of threw it in there. So, how do you see retailers using interactive kiosks lately?
Well, and I think, a lot of people think of retail, as like the Walmart and the Target, but, retail by definition is anywhere where someone's buying or getting a service, right?
Hmm.
So if you look at that broader spectrum, you see a lot happening within the airports and within hotels.
Hmm.
And I see it every time I travel. you know, there's hardly anyone behind the counter, and everybody automatically walks up to the check-in kiosk, or they walk, over to the self-service, desktop or tablet set up, and boom, boom, boom. In the airport, you see more and more people checking their own bags, having no issue with getting their boarding passes, and you see them, much more on getting on the flights. I would say like 3 years ago, maybe one out of the 50 people getting on, one of my small flights somewhere would have their smartphone out with their boarding pass. I would say that's at least tripled now.
Right.
So I think, overall, we're just seeing a lot of good technology being used, and the consumer wants to use it. Um, so I think it all makes for a better customer experience when you put it all together.
Thanks. So, what do you see as some innovative examples of this sort of technology using? Can you share any of those with us?
Well, of course, I recommend reading restaurant
Hmm.
retailcustomerexperience.com because we're always reporting on what people are doing. But one story we just covered in the last week or so is about a Gap Inc. global brand called Hill City. It's about a year old. It's a menswear brand. So, you think Gap and you're thinking, okay, not old time retail, but established retail. And what they did here was they went with an online experience first. Then they went to a pop-up physical experience
Hmm.
where the associates in that pop-up environment just were holding an iPhone. Um, and the customers would come in and they would order or they could browse more products over the iPhone. And then this past October, they actually launched a physical brick and mortar at the pop up location, and they're getting ready to put a mobile shop in a truck experience out on the road in the neighborhood. So there's just so many ways that the technology is being used today. Disneyland introduced a fast pass touchscreen kiosk for three of its Tomorrowland rides.
Hmm.
No paperless reservations, all tied to a mobile app. And then we wrote a short thing about a 10-day retail pop-up experience in London that offered everything from fashion to lifestyle events and had 27 brands involved. So, they didn't provide any figures in terms of what the customer or shopper wanted, but I mean, to me, that just shows, the evolution of the actual pop-up too, in a way. So, I think every day there's something new happening, and of course, every day something's failing. I mean, because that's the thing with
Hmm.
technology. If Google has proved anything, it's proved that you could fail, tremendously at times, and still be incredibly innovative. So, um, it's pretty exciting because there's just something coming up every day.
Right, there definitely is. And our last question we have for you is, what do you really see as the future for all this retail technology?
Well, I've been covering retail CX, focused on it for about 5 years now with Networld. Before that, I wrote about technology in general. And just in those 5 years, the innovations have been amazing. But from my viewpoint, and as someone who never had a smartphone until I was in my, late 20s, early 30s, I'm kind of like grown up with a lot of what's happening. And to me, though, I think it's still really in the early stages because people
Hmm.
are starting to build on the initial innovations, right? Um, making things better and better. So with all that, smart minds at work and the retail segment now, quickly catching up to understand the value proposition. And I don't know if everybody will get this reference, but I expect we'll look back on this past decade with CX as sort of the beta VHS time
Oh, yeah.
when it comes to technology because I grew up with beta VHS, and my
Hmm.
kids don't even know what that is. So, and that's just 20 years. So I think we're going to see the same kind of evolution in retail customer experience technology.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Judy. It was great having you on.
Thanks for having me, Brad.